in addition to what I do at the museum. Currently, both are closed to the general public due to COVID. And the college may take a slightly longer time opening than most public sites, just because they are very cautious about protecting the students. And we've been very, very lucky. Oberlin College has had very low numbers of COVID cases, and so but we're all excited, I think, that we're heading into the vaccine phase, and hopefully some of you have been vaccinated or it will be happening soon. I know I'm very excited about that myself. I started at the Allen Memorial Art Museum in 2017. Prior to that, I was teaching art history in a number of locations, Kenyon College here in Ohio, but prior to that, I was in Portland, Oregon area. And so I've sort of been in different locations, and I thoroughly enjoy working with the public in relation to the museum, which is a gorgeous little museum. It's a college museum. It ranks among the top 10 academic museums in the country. So you can do a wonderful visit to see the museum and see the house. Originally, this tour was going to be given by, see if I can get this to advance here. Not advancing. There we go. By Fred Unwin, who is one of our most stellar docents, and unfortunately, he was not able to do the tour. He got ill, so I'm jumping in at the last moment. But I wanted to acknowledge him, who he was very eager and willing to do the tour. So here's the museum in our small little town, located on the corner of this beautiful park. And the house is located about a mile off of campus. And I'm showing you here the map so that you can see Morgan Street. Across the street here is a golf course, which was originally there. But all of these streets, this entire housing development, even this road that looks like it comes very close to the house, all of which were not there, were not originally a part of this. And so this sort of 1 mile outside of town, this fits in with sort of Frank Lloyd Wright's ideas of getting away from the city, getting away from the town. It was basically Ohio cornfields, wheat fields surrounding the house in the area, other than, as I said, the street and the golf course. So we will move forward to this image of these, I would say, very important figures in the history of the home. So my plan for today was not really to discuss quite a bit about Frank Lloyd Wright, because as I understand it, you have all attended a number of Frank Lloyd Wright virtual tours. And at this point, I think you've been to more virtual homes than I have. So I will not pretend to be the expert on the number of Frank Lloyd Wright houses out there. But I do know a little bit about this house, and really the existence of the house today is indebted to these two women. So Margaret Weltzheimer and her husband Charles lived in another part of Ohio and were moving to this area. Charles got a new job, and this is around 1947. And Margaret, was very insistent that they move to Oberlin as opposed to the town where Charles had his job, which is just south of here in Wellington, because she wanted her to be in the Oberlin community. She went on to get her master's degree in English. She wanted her son to go to college here, which he did the year after they moved into the house. So it was very important for her to be in Oberlin, and she was very much aware of Frank Lloyd Wright, his architecture, the sort of modernist living that he espoused in his designs. So she wrote a letter, and we have this wonderful correspondence between her and the studio and Frank Lloyd Wright about how she was interested in a house, and couldn't he please design one for individuals of modest income. So here we are in 1947, and he agrees to design a house for the Weltzheimers. here in Oberlin. They had already purchased the plot of land, and they were very excited to get started. Well, they go through almost a year and nothing had happened. And so they were desperate to get these plans. They take a little trip to Taliesin and knock on Frank Lloyd Wright's door and say, "We really need these plans." So he just sort of sat down and just started sketching a little design and said, "I think this is what it will look like." And so it took a little while longer. Then plans were drawn up. Construction began in 1948, and they moved in on April 1st. So we're almost coming up to the anniversary, April 1st, 1949. And they were, Charles and Margaret were a family at that point of three. And later another baby comes. And so it's a slightly different house than many of this style. And it's a Usonian home, which I'll talk about in a moment. Because it was meeting the needs of the family, which was to have a master bedroom and extra bedrooms. So there's 3 extra bedrooms. So Margaret was thrilled with the house. They wrote again later to ask for furniture designs, and I'll show you some examples. The other great benefactress of the house is Ellen H. Johnson, which is why the house is the Weltzheimer Johnson house. So when Margaret passed away in 1963, at that point, the house had already gone on the market before she passed away, and she was not living in it at that time. But developers had purchased the house. There's 2 sort of intervening developers between these 2 women, and the latter of the 2 made a number of alterations to the house. That Ellen Johnson, when she set her mind to buying the house, basically set her mind to changing the house back to its original state as much as possible. So who is Ellen Johnson? She was an art historian, a very famous educator at Oberlin College. She started working at Oberlin in 1939, and the following year in 1940, she began what is known as the Oberlin Art Rental Collection. It's a very famous collection of works of art by contemporary to old master artists. Students at Oberlin College can rent these works of art for the semester, up to 2 works of art for $5 each. They include Rembrandts, Picassos, Jean Moreau. They include contemporary artists, Christo. It's an amazing collection, and they are original works of art, and the students can take them to their dorm rooms and hang them for the semester. And that's all thanks to Ellen Johnson, who began that program in 1940. So we're coming around, we're just past 80 years that this program has been going. But you can see here, she's depicted in her home right next to a Roy Lichtenstein painting that she herself collected. So in addition to teaching art history, creating the art rental program, she also was an avid collector and wrote about contemporary artists of the day. And this is in the 60s and the 70s. And when she passed away, she bequeathed the house that she purchased to the college and her art collection to the museum. So we are thankful for her to not only purchase the house, but to purchase the land that at the time was being sold off in 2 pieces, and to also restoring it, not completely to its original state, but many of the alterations to their original state. So here's a plan looking at the layout of the house. This is like the main plot of land that, as I said, would have been divided for sale when Ellen Johnson purchased it in 1968. Originally, it was meant to have an orchard down here towards the street. It was meant to be lined with a low hedge. And then the house situated here, as you can see, at an angle to the lot. And so this is due south right here. Sorry, I should have angled it that way in the next slide, but this is south down here and due north. So you can see that the house is not aligning to the cardinal points in terms of the 4 sort of main walls of the house, if you will. And that was really to capture the sun and to take advantage of passive solar in the winter time. This exterior sort of landscaping that was meant to be built off the corner of the house and with a barbecue pit at this end never was constructed. And so we didn't have that, if you will, an exterior room to the house that I think was originally envisioned. So here I've rotated this plan so that now it's in the south. And here you can see, and it's oriented to the cardinal direction so that you can see how the house is angled and here how it's angled today. The family, the Weltzheimers, put in these large trees that line the lot, the property today, instead of the low hedge. It does certainly alter the current landscaping aesthetic of the house, but it actually, we're kind of lucky because all of the houses have developed around the house, and the trees provide a screen, so you can really sort of sense that you're walking back in time. Here's a you know a angled view to give you what do you call that? A panoramic shot, if you will, so that you can see the trees lining. And then this is the original driveway right here. Today, it's a walking path. So people park on Morgan Street and they walk up the original driveway to the house, which is at the far end. We have a few historic photos of the house. These are shortly, this one is during construction, towards this end of the construction phase. Here the family has moved in. They're very close in time period, because if you notice here along the edge here of what we would call the fascia, which is a small vertical board right here, it's actually angled a little bit inward. There are no balls hanging along that fascia board going around the house. And you'll see in all the subsequent photos of the house, there are thousands of little balls that are attached to the house and run all the way around it. It's one of the features that makes the Weltzheimer Johnson house unique. And I'll talk about later possibly where that motif may have come from. And then here's probably the first winter that they were living in the house. And the December before they moved in April, they had what the family referred to as a whoops baby, and they had a daughter that they weren't expecting, and they turned one of the workrooms, it was supposed to be Charles Weltzheimer's workroom, into a nursery. So here's a plan of the house. Now, this plan was sort of done when we did a historic structures report. And so it's trying to capture a lot of different elements, perhaps some a little too confusing, but I'll try to break it down. And actually some of the things aren't necessarily how they are today, but in general, it's a good sense of the house. So as part of a Usonian home, and for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, it's a term that fits into Frank Lloyd Wright's ideas of creating modern living for middle class, average Americans. These houses were not intended to be expensive. Many of them had built-ins. He was designing them with more basic materials. The four main elements, construction elements of the house, are concrete, glass, brick, lots of brickwork, and in this case, California redwood. All the wood that you see in the house is California redwood, which is unique for a house outside of California. So it is similar to a Usonian in the sense that it is an L-shaped design. It is similar in that you have this master bedroom and these the bedrooms. There's actually four of them, which is unusual. Most Usonian homes only have two, but all of the bedrooms are on one wing of the house, sort of the private wing of the house. And then you have the more public facing side of the house in the other section. So that also fits with these Usonian ideas. So we're going to start by going in through the foyer, and then I will show you the public spaces of the house. You'll notice the living room and the dining room are open floor plan. And then you have the kitchen, which is the most altered room of the house, just to let you know, in terms of what the developer did to it, and that Ellen Johnson did not have the time to fix or to restore back to its original state. You'll notice here that we have what show up on the plans here are these, what will be, you'll see in the slides, vertical brick columns, which are really quite interesting. Not many houses have that kind of quality. So this is the public space opening to the terrace out into the garden. And remember um, the hedge creating that exterior space would have come diagonally off of this corner, creating an exterior sort of room between the environment and part of Frank Lloyd Wright's organic architecture aesthetic. Then you come around, if you were to go to the other section, here's the workshop that became the nursery. You have the master bedroom, the bathroom off the master bedroom, the other bath, and then the three children's bedrooms towards this end of the house. Now, this part right here of the plan shows you how the bathroom was originally designed on the plans. It was meant to be a Jack and Jill bathroom, meaning that you could go into the shower from this bathroom space, or you could use the shower bath from this bathroom. I think the Weltzheimers put an end to that. I know that if I had 4 children, I wouldn't want to be sharing with my kids. So the wall was put in and they became 2 completely separate bathrooms. All right, we'll keep going. All right, so here we come into the house. So this is the front door. We enter into the foyer. What you don't see in this picture is there's a very low carport on the exterior of the home. Of course, Frank Lloyd Wright didn't like garages. Garages were for horses, and he just thought your car needed a carport. And it's a very low hanging carport. And so then when you come in, you have this very open space of the foyer that comes down to the low level of the carport again. And then when you round the corner, it opens again. This is the compressed release aesthetic that Frank Lloyd Wright is very well known for, and you can see it from the moment that you walk in the house. This also gives you a wonderful view of the brick material and the California redwood in the house, with built-in such as the cupboards. When you round that corner into the living room, you have this wonderful open space with leading up to this very sort of tall ceiling. The board and battens are a beautiful design. I'll show you a slide in a moment. You can see in the concrete floor, which has its radiant heating, that it is based on a 2x4 grid that is used throughout the house. So using that rectangular ratio throughout the house, and it relates to the shape and size of the windows. It relates to the shape and size similarity of the bricks. And you can see that it sort of is the base unit that's used throughout the space. Now, all of the furnishings that you see in here, well, it's a combination, I should say. Okay, so the couch and this table, these are left over from Ellen Johnson. This chair and this table, the chair was built based on the original designs that the Weltzheimers commissioned from Frank Lloyd Wright, although a modern construction, but based on those designs. And this table is also built based on the designs that were given or purchased from Frank Lloyd Wright. These set of tables right here in the hassocks, being the dining room, they are not attached. They can actually be moved, and I'll show you an image of where they've moved around in a moment. They can also perfectly fit out these double doors if you want to open them and dine al fresco. So Frank Lloyd Wright was giving them many options of how to arrange the interior with the built-in section here. The piano is on loan from the College Conservatory of Music, but that's in the exact location that the piano was in the plans that Frank Lloyd Wright designed for the house. I mean, he really believed that music should be an integral part of the family and the experience. And I know you did the tour of Taliesin, so you would have seen the music stand, for example, and Charles and Margaret played. And so it was part of the entertainment for your guests. So here, let me back up. So if you go around the corner this way, then you would see the continuation of this bench. Here's that dining room 3-part table section again with the hassocks, numerous shelves, spaces for books. But here we can see one of the first alterations, and that is that this window that was covered up right here was not originally a window. It was moved from one of the bedrooms. And these boards that you see right here would have continued across this section and wrapped around into the kitchen for open shelving, which is not what it is today. So that part has not been changed. But you can see here the clerestory windows, and I have details of those in a later section. And so here you can see that, back to that portrait of Ellen Johnson, who chose not to put the dining room tables here off this corner. She actually had them lined up over the banquette. So you can see that she sort of moved the furniture around. Here's a view of the ceiling. All of the ceilings in the house are these beautiful board and batten designs. And many of them are illusionistic in the sense that depending on where you stand and the angle of the wood grain changes the color of the wood. So it seems quite light here and then dark here, but if you were to go onto the other side of the room and look up, it would be reversed. And then you have, I think, one of the interesting features about Frank Lloyd Wright is for the lights, right? Here we have the lights, you can see them. They are following essentially the windows, right? That's not necessarily where you need or want lights in the evening, right? You would want the lights to be, so that you would have, in the daytime, you don't need light. In the nighttime, you would want lights that are more centrally placed. But Frank Lloyd Wright really had this idea that, in many ways, that you are living with nature. And so when the sun goes down, you should be winding down your day. When the sun comes up is when you should really be doing your activities. And this is one of these examples of him sort of dictating the way that people should live according to his ideas, which I think is interesting. Okay. Switching around to another angle of the living room, dining room combination, here are those wonderful brick columns that you can see, that this play of the horizontality and then the vertical in this space. And then here's a view from inside the kitchen looking out, or a view of Margaret Weltzheimer herself in the kitchen that can be seen from the living room. So there's really this sort of peekaboo quality, if you can see into what he called the workspace, not the kitchen, but the workspace between these spaces where you are semi a part of the living room space, but also in the workspace. So here's the kitchen. I thought I'd show it to you, even though it's not quite what we would say. It's not right, all pun intended. These wood looks very nice, but it's not the same California redwood. This would have been a free range stove right here. This white countertop, actually all of the white countertops would have not been white. They would have been this sort of Frank Lloyd Wright red, cherry red linoleum that you see here. And you can't quite see it, but over the sink, there's a window that was added. And then that goes into the space where there was a double stacked oven right here. Many of these changes were made in the 60s because the developer thought that the kitchen needed to be updated, and double stacked ovens were all the rage at the time. And so I think that was one of his main reasons for the change. Okay, now heading down to the private side of the house. This is this very long corridor with the master bedroom and then the other 3 bedrooms leading off of it. This section was altered by the developer, essentially from the very top bookshelf up. He took all of the wood and perforated boards out and put windows in. And then we aren't 100% sure, but we think he added whiteboard to this inner wall because he wanted to lighten what was a very dark, and some people say claustrophobic, corridor, which of course is a part of the compressed aesthetic, because when you go into each of the bedrooms, the ceilings go up in this wonderful release quality, but the the contractor didn't think that. So Ellen Johnson had all of these perforated boards recut and put in place. Why? Because we don't know where all of them ended up. We do know one of them's in the Chicago Art Institute, which I think is near some of you. You guys have one of the Weltzheimer Johnson perforated boards in your collection. These bookshelves are lined with Ellen Johnson books, but it's really like this. There's the three shelves. This lower shelf was added by Margaret Weltzheimer because she was such a voracious reader, and so that was accommodating her interests. So moving into the master bedroom, and I apologize, this is kind of a wild, lots of images here, but here's the door off of the hallway, behind which are these accordion door columns and these cutout drawer spaces. Then when you round the corner, there is this large fireplace, which is the other side of which is in the living room. So very centrally located fireplace. You have these doors that open onto the porch. Those are original doors, but the curtains are not. Frank Lloyd Wright didn't believe in curtains, and none of the windows had curtains originally. Ellen Johnson had those put in as a single woman living in a house alone. She wanted, I think rightfully so, some privacy. Then when you continue around to the other side, so the doors, these doors right here would be in this side of the photo. This is the master bathroom, and this sort of finishes the space of the room. I put in this little detail of the star bricks, which are located right here along the fireplace. Actually, Mr. Weltzheimer came from a town that these bricks are from, originally in Ohio. The star bricks were quite famous and actually had been shipped internationally. And he wanted his fireplace to be star bricks. But Frank Lloyd Wright said, nope. And they was not allowed to have the star bricks except for these little ones that you see along the master bedroom fireplace. Moving along to see some more of the bedrooms down the hallway. This was the son's bedroom. It's a little hard to see, but right here in the floor is the remnants of what would have been a closet in this section that was removed at one point. But you do see the built-in desks, and you do see how the shelving aligns with the boards that we see in the room. This is the next bedroom that belonged to the daughter, Gretchen Weltzheimer. She actually lives out in Portland, Oregon, and I've been in correspondence with her. She donated one of the tables back to the house recently. This was her bedroom. And again, you have these lovely doors. Each of these bedrooms had doors that you could go out into to the garden green space behind the house. And then the final bedroom of the house is the littlest bedroom. The ceiling is low in this space because the daughter had written to Frank Lloyd Wright and said, I want a small, tight, comfortable room. And that's what she got. Low ceiling, very small room with her built-in desk and bed. She said she remembers always looking up at this beautiful ceiling before she went to bed. And she has one of the beautiful mitered windows, where these two pieces of glass come together, but there's no support beam in between. So it just sort of spills out into the green space. The house today still attracts all kinds of wildlife, which is wonderful. I think that Frank Lloyd Wright and Margaret Weltzheimer and Ellen Johnson would have loved that. There are turkey vultures that roost in these trees right here. And one morning, my assistant was able to capture a deer just outside of the windows of this bedroom. Moving out to the exterior, this is the terrace, and all of these doors open up onto the terrace. And you can see this wonderful play of light that comes through these openings here in the roof, cantilevered roof. The glass beautifully reflects the garden. That's one of the reasons I love this picture, is this idea of the outdoors and the indoors and the play between the spaces is very evident in this part of the house. And then the balls that line, as I said, the fascia boards and make the Weltzheimer Johnson house unique, go all the way around. Recently, this was just in November, there was the Saving Right Now, Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy Conference. And of all of the homes and structures and hotels designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, we not only have this little detail right here, but we got this one as well. So both details of the balls around the boards were represented in their poster. Where did these balls come from? Well, there is some reference to the house being originally called Shagbark in one of the letters between Margaret Weltzheimer and Frank Lloyd Wright. It doesn't show up many times, but a shagbark is a particular hickory tree that's very popular in Ohio in this particular area that produces these kinds of nuts. So some people suggest that these might have influenced the balls around the building. It certainly is something that was part of Frank Lloyd Wright's design principles from the very beginning. So whether it's the circular motif here in the stained glass windows, or here looking at the Imperial Hotel in Japan, and in particular, I'm looking right here, these stacked balls, and a detail of them is right here, these stacked spheres at the Imperial Hotel. And this is from very early in the 20th century. But you look at some of the other Usonian houses by Frank Lloyd Wright, and this is around, well, this was 54, so about 5 years before the Weltzheimer, 6 years before the plans. He is playing with these animated, geometrically designed dentils around the houses, around the fascia boards. Here's another one from 57 where you can also see. Now, granted, I'll give you that rectangular and square motifs are very different than the spheres, but he was thinking about spheres later in his life. And this house was built about 10 years before he died. He actually never came to Oberlin. He sent his apprentice, Ted Bauer, to oversee the construction. So this Marion County Civic Center in California that was designed before he died in 1959, and construction began the year after his death. But you can see balls running along the exterior roof line, the interior roof line, and even the light fixtures on the inside. So it was something that he was interested in. So we see them running all the way around our house. They're a little bit of the bane of my existence because they keep falling off. And this one right here is a corner one, and it's particularly hard to replace to get them because they're kind of like a Pac-Man. They have this cutout in them, and then they're affixed to the house, but they were originally fixed with nails, not screws. And so that's why they keep popping off. Another unique feature to our house is the style of our perforated boards. So perforated boards, these cutouts that you see here along in what would be called the Clara story, the upper section allowing light into the house, those are very common. Most of the Usonian homes have perforated boards. However, most of the perforated boards are very angular, which I'll show you in a minute. Ours have quite a curvilinear quality to them, playing again on the balls, which I think if you look through them, you can actually see the balls on the exterior. So how did ours change? We don't know for sure. It seems that the Weltzheimers did not like the original plan, which I'll show you in a moment, and that they instead wanted something different. So Ted Bauer, the apprentice that I mentioned, is probably the one that did the designs. There's differing opinions about whether he got approval from Frank Lloyd Wright. They certainly aren't like the more angular perforated boards that are more common with Usonian homes. So here you can see many of the different examples of them. And then right here down below, this is the original design for the Frank Lloyd Wright, for the Weltzheimer Johnson house, the one that was rejected by the Weltzheimers in favor of the more curvilinear ones. An unusual view from on top of the roof, but it gives you a beautiful sort of view of the lawn with the house that we are very thankful that Ellen Johnson was able to purchase and keep whole when she purchased the house. A little detail here showing you one of the things that was done when the roof was repaired in 1995. We moved the fascia boards out from the edge of the house to allow for the water to drain off from the house, not onto the wood. So that was a decision that was made to alter the original design, but in order to preserve the house and the wood for the exterior. Oberlin College students visit the house to take classes here. This was prior to COVID, so that's why nobody's masks. This was just last weekend. You can see they're wearing their masks, playing frisbee out on the lawn. The house is normally open on the first Sunday of the month, April through November. So 8 times a year, and tickets are usually sold from our website. One last beautiful view of the house with the snow covering falling through the open windows and falling off of the fascia boards. And then I will end there and open this up to questions.
Yes, Jill, thank you. We do have some questions. Let me just, if you have a question, please send it in the chat box and I will ask them. I'm going back to the top because we had some earlier.
So Hillary, do you want me to leave my slides up in case we need to refer back to them, or should I take
Up
it
to
down?
you, whichever you're more comfortable with.
Okay. Well, I kind of like the community of it, so I'm going to stop sharing
I
screen.
know we have so many people only have their names, so. Can you just go back again about the relationship between the two women who lived in the house? Did they know each other? I may have missed that, and I apologize.
No, that's fine. They actually were, Margaret Weltzheimer died 6 years before Ellen Johnson purchased the house. There's no evidence or any indication that they actually knew each other. So they were here in Oberlin at the same time, but at that point, Margaret was fairly ill and was living in an assisted living facility. And I think Ellen Johnson just became aware of the house and wanted to purchase it. And the developer was selling the front lawn separately, and she sold a Richard Diebenkorn painting in order to get the funds to buy it. Actually, the Cleveland Museum of Art now owns the Richard Diebenkorn painting. Yeah, we're just really thankful that she purchased the whole thing together.
And there were only 2 bathrooms, is that correct? That's with the.
Yeah, originally was supposed to be, basically 1. But yeah, it's 2 today, and they're quite small, which is why I didn't show you pictures of them. It's very difficult to get a picture of them.
Yeah, I can't imagine sharing my bathroom with my children either. So why were the privacy hedges not planted?
So instead of the privacy hedges, they put in the trees. And I think that was just a decision that the family made, that they wanted to put in those trees. We, as owners, caretakers of the home, now need to consider what we're going to do, because that style of tree is we're now 70 years past a tree that has a life expectancy of about 50 years. So we're starting to lose our trees in branches. And so we need to decide what we're going to do, if we're going to go back to a lower hedge of some kind. It's going to be a difficult decision because they are big tree trunks, and it's not going to be an easy thing to plant around them. But yeah, it was a decision the family made. It sounds like Margaret was a gardener. She moved many of her bulbs from her previous residence with her. I don't know how she kept them alive for 2 years before they moved in, but she did, and she does describe planting around the house.
Mr. Heller wants to know, does your organization undertake or intend to undertake projects to return the building to its original design by removing the developer's changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately we certainly would like to move in that direction, but we're dealing with more immediate issues than that. It leaks around the fireplace. So if you guys have taken tours, you may have heard this before. It's very common, and ours is no exception. We have a significant leak around our fireplace that we need to mitigate. The roof, as I said, was replaced in 1995, and that's at the end of its life expectancy. So that's going to be coming up soon. So the college and the project manager that I work with is very concerned about the what he calls the envelope. He wants the envelope to be secure, and then we'll move inside. But we have a number of things that we need to do. certainly on the list is restoring the kitchen back to its original state, but it's not a priority until we get those other issues taken care of.
Nina's asking if you can just quickly explain the Usonian house again.
Oh, sure. Okay. So the term Usonian was sort of in the, I don't know, shall we say the zeitgeist of the early 1920s. There's publishings that are, make reference to this idea of USONA, United States of North America, USONA. And if you turn it into an adjective or a style, it's Usonian. And so this Usonian idea was a house for Americans, it was a house for middle class living, modern living, incorporating many of the principles that Frank Lloyd Wright believed in, especially from his Broadacre Village designs, if you're familiar with Broadacre City. And so it is sort of, I would say that these principles are the overriding principles for the design of the house. And so we can see common elements with other Usonian houses. In the elements such as the L-shaped design, usually 2 bedrooms. The building materials are, these aren't the houses with the elaborate stained glass or the cutout woodwork, intricate inlaid woodwork. These are the houses with the perforated boards, which is beautifully aesthetically, but definitely in terms of construction and materials, a much more affordable design material and motif. And so, there were changes that were made to make these houses more affordable. Now, saying that, the Weltzheimers embarked on this venture thinking that they were going to spend $15,000 on the house. We don't know the exact final outcomes of the house, but we can see in the letters the stress in Charles Weltzheimer as he's writing about costs that keep going up and up and up. It seems like the houses at one point, are probably was around 30,000. I think online there are estimates that it was 50,000. I have no idea where those came from. We really don't know, but we do. It's most likely that it was double what it was originally intended to be.
And we get that question every time we have one of these tours, and it seems like the people who are building the house, the family, have a set number, and it's usually double, sometimes triple what is planned. Did Margaret have an ongoing relationship with Wright as so many other owners did?
I think she did write quite frequently, and her letters are just beautiful in terms of describing the quality of life. She really was interested in minimizing the amount of material things that they have, except for books, and to really sort of embrace this new way of living. But they didn't meet other than the time that they went to Taliesin, and I don't think it was an ongoing relationship because some of the correspondence that came back to her was from the studio. So whoever was writing from the studio wrote her back, not necessarily Frank Lloyd Wright. So I don't think it was the same kind of relationship. I do think that, he probably accepted the commission based on, she wrote a very beautiful and compelling letter about why they wanted and needed the design.
It's interesting because I think pretty much most of the people who had houses built by Frank Lloyd Wright or designed by Frank Lloyd Wright did write very moving letters to him why they wanted the house.
Yeah.
Vicki wanted to know, how was the master workshop space used by the family?
So it was supposed to be for Charles Weltzheimer, but as I said, the baby was born right before they moved in, so it became a nursery. That daughter, Kristen, before she died, wrote a letter about living in the house, and she hated that room. So she wrote that she would be in her crib and she would want out to play with her siblings, and she couldn't get out, and so she just has bad memories of being in that room. But so when Ellen Johnson lived in the house, I don't really know what happened to this space. The son went off to college, So perhaps the daughter moved into his space. I don't know exactly how that order went, but I do know that when um, Ellen Johnson lived in the house, she stored her art collection. So whatever she didn't have on the walls was stored in there, her wine collection, and she had a sauna built in there. Three things that prove that I would have liked Ellen Johnson.
That's funny. All the furnishings are Frank Lloyd Wright designed.
Well, so like the couch and the chairs, and if you come to the house, like right now, the photos that I showed you were the professional photos, so we removed all the knickknacks from the shelves. But if you come to the house, the knickknacks are all over the house, and those were Ellen Johnson's knickknacks. She was a avid scuba diver, world traveler, just an adventurous woman, and she went everywhere and seemed to know everyone. Apparently, she would get on a midnight train, end up in New York, like Friday night, get on the train, end up in New York in the morning, travel around to see artists in their studios, Andy Warhol at his factory. She would meet with these, sort of bohemian dinner parties that she would write about, and then she would come back and teach her classes on Monday. So she just had a really interesting collection, and you can see it sort of scattered, around the house. Certainly we don't have all of the objects. The family and the executors over her estate sort of divided up some of the objects.
But the actual furniture itself is that Frank
Some of
Lloyd
it.
Wright?
Yeah. So it's Frank Lloyd Wright design. Remember that, they after the house was built, they wrote in and asked for commissioned designs for furniture. They got the designs, and from those designs built some of the furniture. So the furnishings we have all been made from those plans. Only at this point, one table, unless it was built into the house, only one table is original, to when the Weltzheimer family was there. And that's the table that we got recently from Gretchen Weltzheimer.
This looks kind of like one of the not so comfortable Frank Lloyd Wright houses. Like the couch doesn't look like you could lay down on it and have a good nap.
Actually, it's surprising. So the banquette that you see sort of behind me right there, if you take those back upright pillows off, it's actually pretty nice to lay down on. That one's pretty comfortable. The hassocks are not that comfortable. The chairs that are around the table, those I can't see sitting at for a really casual dinner party, which might be why Ellen Johnson moved the dining room table over to the banquette. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Jill, thank you so much. We don't have any more questions from the audience, but Eileen and I would like to thank you for your time today. This was really, really enjoyable. I hope that everybody else enjoyed visiting with us. Tomorrow we have Community Thursdays. We're going to be hearing about the 100 most influential Jews of all time. We're covering numbers 26 through 50. You can find more information about that on our calendar on our website, jccchicago.org. And then we're taking a little break for Passover, and we will be back on April 8th with synagogues of the South Shore and the South Side of Chicago. Again, more information on our website. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great rest of your day and take care and be well. Thank you.
Thank you.